12 months ago, Cameron Norrie was facing a brave new world. The lanky left-hander was just weeks into his professional career after spending 3 years developing his game and gaining an education at Texas Christian University in the U.S. Ranked outside the world's top 200, Norrie had enjoyed some success at the lower levels of the professional circuit, but had little idea of how his game would match up against the world's best. In Norrie's own words, what followed has been pretty surreal. The 22-year-old has since risen to 75 in the world. I won Grand Slam matches at the French Open and US Open, and beaten Spain's world number 14 Roberto Bautista at over 5 sets on clay in the Davis Cup. Read more. Wimbledon 2018. Andy Murray withdraws from Wimbledon. Statement in full. I didn't really expect this at all, says Norrie, who faces Slovenia's Aljaž Bedini in the first round of Wimbledon on Monday. I was pretty successful in college, so I knew I could play, but I didn't know I could get here as quickly as I have. Davis Cup gave me a lot of confidence, both knowing that I had the level to compete with top 30 guys, and that I've got it in my legs to play back-to-back 5-set matches. It was pretty sick for me. But while Norrie will be relishing the support of the home fans this week, back in New Zealand, the country's tennis administrators will be watching on ruefully, and once again wondering how they managed to let this one slip through the net. Early life in New Zealand. While Norrie is currently based at the National Tennis Centre in Roehampton, just a few miles from the All England Club, he first took up the game many thousands of miles away in a suburb of Auckland. The son of a Scottish father and Welsh mother who met in South Africa, where Norrie was born, before later emigrating to New Zealand, he initially competed under the Kiwi flag as a teenager, rising to the top 10 in the junior rankings and mixing it with the likes of Nick Kyrgios and Alex Zverev. His teenage coach James Greenhalgh remembers a player who was intensely driven, with a tactical nous beyond his years. Cameron wasn't the biggest and strongest kid in the juniors, so he always had to find different ways to win matches, he says. He had this great tactical awareness and competitive spirit. I remember him always asking me what my highest junior ranking was, how many junior titles I'd won, and then trying to tick those boxes off one by one. In some ways, it may have been the more relaxed attitude of learning the game in a country where, as Norrie puts it, tennis isn't the biggest sport, which allowed him to develop the unorthodox range of shots which characterize his game. Norrie's loopy lefty forehand, brimming with top spin, combined with a rapier-like backhand typically hit with little spin at all, certainly aren't found in any coaching manual. Such shots may well have been forcibly adjusted by the rigorous academy drilling often experienced by teenagers in the UK, but this unusual blend causes Norrie's opponents many problems. Ambitious teenager. I'm not really overcoached at all, Norrie tells I. In New Zealand, we mainly worked on playing instinctively and not worrying too much about technique. I think that's kind of the reason I've been pretty successful, because my game is quite different and I've stuck with it. I think my game is quite troubling for some players because I can get variation automatically without even having to think about it. But as a teenager with ambitions to make it on the professional circuit, Norrie found himself growing increasingly disillusioned with the lack of opportunities in Kiwi tennis. With just a single ATP event in Auckland, and no Futures or Challenger tournaments, Norrie found it hard to see a viable pathway onto the professional circuit. Even New Zealand's #1 doubles player, Michael Venus, is based in London, rather than the Southern Hemisphere. Read more. Wimbledon 2018, who are the favourites to win in the men's draw? All the latest odds. In New Zealand all they care about is basically rugby, Norrie says. So when I got to 16, I knew I'd have to leave to give myself a chance of becoming professional. You have to be around the best guys in the world, and the majority of them are in Europe. I just needed that exposure. At the time I was only playing tennis 3 to 4 times a week, and going to a regular school, so it wasn't the right lifestyle for an aspiring player. Underfunded down under, the decision to switch nationality to Britain, and move alone to the UK at such a young age signified Norrie's steely determination to maximize his talent. But it was also one born of financial necessity. While Tennis New Zealand were reportedly looking to invest in players capable of reaching the higher echelons of the game, they overlooked Norrie, who received just a few $1,000s, and chose to devote the bulk of their funding to other juniors. To date, none are ranked in the world's top 1,000. Back then, Tennis New Zealand was generally run by administrators who didn't know much about tennis, and we didn't get much from them. Norrie's father David tells "While my wife and I were both working, funding Cameron's tennis was certainly a financial burden. We also have a daughter as well, so it was also quite tough to be showing that kind of preferential treatment. When we decided we were sending Cameron offshore, we were approached at the 11th hour by an organization called the Seed Foundation, who funded the career of Marina Erakovic, New Zealand's #1 female player who reached a high of 39 in the world career, about putting some funding in place. But we'd already made our decision." Cameron Norrie represents New Zealand as a 13-year-old at the Australian Open Junior Championships in 2013. Getty. 6 years later, Norrie's subsequent success has proved to be a continual sore point down under. After he qualified for last year's US Open, one newspaper wrote, "Cameron Norrie's success haunts Tennis New Zealand." However, Norrie himself has no regrets about his choices. "I've heard that, but when I was 16, they didn't offer to fund or help me at all," he says. "So it was a no-brainer decision to switch for me, and I'm happy I'm now living here, having lived at various points in South Africa, New Zealand, the UK and the US." Norrie admits that his varied existence has made him something of a citizen of the world, hinted by a unique accent which has been described as Pacific meets Atlantic. However, he insists he feels pretty proud to be flying the British flag. "I feel British," he says. "I'm actually looking to buy my own place in London, somewhere near the National Tennis Centre, but it's pretty expensive. Hopefully I can win a couple of rounds at Wimbledon, and then I can maybe afford a place in Putney. That'd be perfect." More on Wimbledon 2018. Even well-meaning people only care about women's tennis when Serena Williams is involved. But the future looks bright. Wimbledon 2018 women's seeds, the full list of 32. Wimbledon 2018, when is the men's singles final? Dates and times for the big event Wimbledon 2018, when does it start? All the key information you need. 15 things you probably didn't know about Wimbledon.